DND number 5, Angels, in Jesus' name, Chapter 2. Keegan opened his eyes. It took a great deal of effort, but he accomplished it and blinked against the early morning light. He vaguely remembered the nurse coming into the hospital room about 2 in the morning and shooting something into his IV. Peering down at his hand, he realized the IV was now gone. He also realized he desperately needed to relieve himself. Unable to do anything about that at present, he decided to take in his new surroundings, beginning with his own body. The bed he occupied was softer than the previous one. They'd left his head slightly elevated. His injured leg rested high on several cushions, which he determined felt much better than having it swinging high above his body. Glancing down, he noted he still wore a hospital gown and nothing else. Next, his gaze swept the room. He seemed to be in a private home, an older home, he thought, as he noted the high ceilings and the old-fashioned ceiling fan. To his right, about 10 feet from the side of his bed, loomed 2 large windows that started about 3 feet from the floor and were at least 8 feet high. He could see through the white lace curtain to the porch beyond, which held a suspended porch swing and was surrounded by a white, simple railing. And beyond the large, accommodating porch was an expanse of green, and then the blacktop of a road. Directly in front of him was an antique dresser and mirror. Shaking his head, he realized he barely recognized the man that stared back at him. He'd lost weight and needed a shave. He moved on. Just past the dresser was a door that, he assumed, led to the rest of the home. On the left wall, another door, slightly ajar, made him think it was a bathroom. And along that same wall was a small desk with a giant print of Monet's garden hanging over it. To the left of his bed sat a brown wooden rocking chair with a pink cushion in the seat. More awake now, he realized he'd been moved during the night, and they must have sedated him to do it. Drawing a deep breath, he went to run a hand through his hair and realized he couldn't. He'd been restrained again. Closing his eyes to get control of his temper, his hands balled into fists. The door opened gently, and he was surprised to see his angel come into the room, her white, blonde hair clipped back at the nape of her neck, her sweet smile in place. Why was she here? Why was she at the safe house? "Good morning, Mr. Moreland," she chirped lightly. "How are you feeling this morning?" He scowled. "They sedated me last night." "Yes, they did. The doctor and your brother talked and decided it would be for the best in case the trip caused any pain." He tugged on the restraints. "And these?" She shook her head. "I told them it wasn't necessary, but Mr. Court insisted. He was so worried you might have one of your spells with only me here to hold you down. I told him I could handle you just fine, but he was very insistent." His temper burned. "You can handle me?" She smiled. "You know what I mean. I certainly meant no offense." "Take them off." Sighing, she shook her head. "I promised your brother I wouldn't take them off until he arrived sometime this morning. He seemed to think that you would try to leave, not that you could." Oh, but he could, he thought. "But you know what? I'm going to have to take at least one off so you can handle this." She held up a urinal. Unless you'd like me to help you with it." Keegan rolled his eyes, his patience thinning. "I'll do it myself." Smiling, she laid the urinal on his abdomen. "Are you right-handed?" "Yes," he replied through gritted teeth. She unbuckled the restraint. "There now. I'll just leave you to it. I'll be right back." "Wait." She stopped. "I have a very tight schedule to run and others to see to." His brow furrowed. "How many more patients are here?" "Just you." "Then why is your schedule so tight? What is this place?" "It's my home." "Your home? What the He caught himself before he let out a string of curses. "Excuse me? Sorry. Look, what's your name?" "Well, folks around here call me Lizzie. At the hospital, they call me Liz. If you're not comfortable with either of those, you can call me Mrs. Anderson." Mrs. Anderson, fine. Tell me, Mrs. Anderson, why am I in your home? Keegan asked, barely able to keep his temper in check. How dare Nigel Court put him in someone's home, a civilian's home? Did his SO not realize what kind of danger he was putting her in? Had Keegan not used the word ruthless every time he'd mentioned the organization? His chin rose slightly, almost defiantly. No, her chin rose slightly, almost defiantly, forcing him to look at the soft underside of her jaw. Delectable. Your brother and Dr. Duncan decided you needed a place to recuperate where you could have privacy and a nurse. Shipping you home to Denver seemed out of the question. I've been thinking about taking in a boarder to help with expenses, and so I accepted the offer. It's not too complicated. Now, I have a million things to do, and I don't want my first day to prove that I can't handle this. So, if you'll excuse me, I'll be back in a few minutes. She pointed at the urinal. I suggest you use that before I get back. She walked briskly from the room. I'm going to kill him. I swear I'm going to kill him. What am I supposed to do? If they find me, how am I supposed to protect this woman? Well, she said Mrs. Anderson, which means she must have a husband. And that should make him feel a little more secure. So why did that detail suddenly give him a sense of disappointment? Probably because it was just one more person in danger, he thought, dismissing it quickly. He jerked the covers from his body and used the urinal, barely finishing before she came back into the room. She was smiling again. There now, that wasn't so bad, was it? She took the urinal and headed to the bathroom, then emerged a few moments later with a small plastic basin filled with water, a washcloth, and some liquid soap. What do you think you're doing? He asked. I'm going to bathe you. No, I don't think so. Come on now, Mr. Moreland, you'll feel so much better. Don't be embarrassed. I'm a nurse. Reaching behind his neck, she pulled the string and lowered his gown, pulled it off his free arm, then unsnapped the sleeve of his restrained arm. And with one quick motion, she pulled the bottom of the gown out from under the blanket and whisked it away, tossing it in the rocker, leaving him naked. She dipped the cloth in the warm water and squeezed out the excess. He knew where she was going first, his face. She moved close to him, running the cloth over his forehead, cheeks, chin. Her face was close to his, and he could feel her breath on his lips. If he moved forward an inch, he could taste her. The thought consumed him. She pulled back and smiled. Maybe tomorrow you'd like to shave. He had to clear his throat before he spoke. Yes, I would. If you wouldn't mind arranging that? Of course. And we'll wash your hair tomorrow, too. He watched as she poured some soap over the cloth, then rubbed the cloth over. Sorry, it just made me laugh. Okay. She poured some soup. Okay. Get a hold of yourself. Okay. He watched. Okay. He watched as she poured some soap over the cloth, then rubbed the cloth over his shoulders and chest and arms. Darn it. Okay. Paying close attention to his armpits. He'd be embarrassed if he wasn't enjoying her touch so much. Then he realized she's going to want to go lower, and he truly is going to be embarrassed. And she rinsed the cloth and went back over his skin, ensuring no soap remained. She raised the head of the bed. Can you sit forward a bit? Darn it, I'm going to have to erase this whole thing. No, I can do this. She raised the head of the bed. Can you sit forward a bit so I can get your back? Grunting in slight pain, he I know nobody will probably ever hear this anyway, so I'll just keep going. Can you sit forward a bit so I can get your back? Grunting in slight pain, he moved forward for her, resting his forehead against her shoulder. He breathed deeply. She smelled good. I'm just ruining this whole thing. She smelled good, like shampoo and something light and sweet. Citrus, maybe. She finished his back and took hold of the blanket. He grabbed it. She pulled it. He pulled it back. Okay, now, Mr. Moreland, I told you I'm a nurse. He realized he was acting ridiculous, but the entire procedure seemed extremely emasculating. She finally won the tug of war. He closed his eyes and concentrated on staying relaxed. She was efficient and finished her work quickly, and he was at least grateful for that. She took the bath water to the bathroom and came back with a towel and lotion. The towel was to make sure all parts of his body were completely dry so that no fungus could grow, she explained. He endured the towel. The lotion he wasn't sure if he could take. Luckily, he discovered she only wanted to apply it to his chest, his back, arms, and legs. Sweat ran from his forehead but by the time she was finished. Are you hot, Mr. Moreland? It's warm, he said, his voice low. She went to the window. I turned the air conditioner off to keep the power bill from being so high, but I can turn it on for you. It's usually pretty cool up here in the foothills by this time of year. Maybe we can try just opening a window and I'll turn on the ceiling fan. He nodded. That would be fine. You said the foothills? She smiled. You're in Tyler Springs. It's a town in North Georgia, a few hours from Atlanta. A short drive to the east, and you'd be in the mountains. He watched her move to the window. She wore jeans, snug jeans, and a simple sleeveless tank top. Her waist was tiny, and he ached to span it with his hands. What was it about her that dissembled him so? Just her touch, her smile, caused an instantaneous physical reaction. She went back into the bathroom and came out with a plastic basin, a toothbrush and toothpaste, and a glass of water, and setting the items on a small table next to the bed, she turned to leave. I'll be back with breakfast soon. I need to take Heather for school. I need to wake Heather for school. You have a kid? Oh, yes, she said with a smile. What can Nigel be thinking? He scrubbed his free hand over his face. Hopefully, Mr. Anderson will turn out to be a help. Keegan looked up. What does your husband do for a living? Her eyes met his solemnly. My husband was killed in Syria almost 4 years ago. She turned and left before he could think to offer his sympathy or apology. Staring at the closed door, he shook his head. Another casualty of war. He'd made it through his stint in the military, but he had many friends who hadn't, friends with wives and children. And now here's this beautiful woman with a kid trying to etch out a living by herself. He'd been proud to serve his country. He'd been proud to fight the bullies, to give human beings their inalienable rights. But he also knew the consequences. He sighed. Lizzie Anderson had her work cut out for her, and now she and her kid were in danger because of him. He had to get out of here. His ears picked up the staccato sound of what he believed some would term the pitter-patter of little feet. Then he heard soft voices and giggling, and then Lizzie's voice. And even though he couldn't make out what she was saying, he could hear the same soft sound, that same sweetness that he heard whenever she spoke to him. It was the sense of smell that assaulted him next. His stomach growled. Something smelled delicious. Minutes later, his angel returned, bearing a tray and wearing that same sweet smile. Setting the tray on the end of the bed, she gathered his dental things and removed them to the bathroom. Next, she knelt down and pulled a U-shaped platform out from under the bed. It fit perfectly over his thighs. Let me sit you up just a little higher, she said as she pushed the button. There now. Is that okay? He nodded. Any pain? He shook his head. She frowned. I am so very sorry, she said, shaking her head. I can't believe I left you with no clothes on. She moved to the dresser, opened the top drawer, removed a white T-shirt, and brought it to him. Your brother thought you would probably prefer wearing T-shirts instead of hospital gowns, even though they don't come down over your lap like the gowns do. You'll have the sheet over that part of you anyway. Leaning over, she pulled the t-shirt over his head. You'll have to unstrap my other hand, he said gruffly. She frowned. You're absolutely right. Oh, well, promise me you won't try to escape, she said with a grin. He raised his eyebrows at the light that shone from her face. I promise, he said. She unstrapped his arm, and he finished pulling on the t-shirt. Lizzie turned and lifted the tray and set it on the platform in front of him. His eyes couldn't help but take in her shape, her beauty, as she bent. Her soft hands unfolded a paper napkin and went to lay it across his lap. Damn it, I can do that myself, he grumbled. She placed her hands on her hips. There is no need to curse at me. I do not allow it in this house. And you needn't be so grumpy. I'm just trying to make you comfortable. He let out a sigh. He hadn't meant to hurt her feelings, but her touch did things to him that he didn't want done. Her smell caused his blood to sizzle, and the sight of her sped up his heart. He didn't want to be here. One, for her own safety, and two, he would have to battle his heart for however many weeks his recovery would take. Sorry, he mumbled. I wasn't actually cursing at you, just the situation. I guess I'm a little antsy. Her luscious lips pressed together as she nodded her head. Well, I can certainly understand that. Duly chastised by her immediate forgiveness, Keegan noted the contents of the tray. Wow, this looks great, he said, eyeing the coffee, juice, buttered English muffins, scrambled eggs topped with cheese, and a small bowl of strawberries and blueberries. I hope you like it. Later we'll talk about foods you'd prefer. Right now, as I've said, I'm on a time budget. I'll be back for the tray in a little while. Take your time, she sighed. I've ordered satellite and a TV for this room, but it won't be here until tomorrow. I have some books or magazines if you think that would help occupy your mind. How about a newspaper? Oh, yes, of course. I should have thought to bring it in. I'll get it right away. No hurry, really. She was so eager to please. It made him feel guilty for how he'd snapped at her. He watched her backside as she left the room. Lord have mercy, what was wrong with him? It's like the accident changed his personality. He was usually not a slave to his passions. He had an iron will, and he could certainly block out a pretty female when he had his job on his mind. Yet that was on hold right now, at least until he could reach someone he could trust. And Mrs. Anderson was a great distraction while he recovered. Breakfast was delicious. Putting weight back on will be easy with meals like this, he thought. He looked up at the soft knock on the door. Come in, he called. The door opened slowly, and a small, tow-headed little girl poked her head inside the room. Big blue eyes peered up at him, half fearful, half curious. He smiled at her, doing his best not to scare her. She was a duplicate of her mother. Hello there, he said. Hi. She came all the way into the room and closed the door behind her, then moved quietly to the bed. I brought you this, she said, holding out the folded newspaper. Mommy was busy, and I told her I could help because I got ready for school really fast. He took the paper from her. Well, thank you. You're welcome. Mommy says you had a car accident and you broke your leg. Does it hurt? Sometimes, he admitted. Mommy says you're lucky to be alive. She's right. My daddy died. Jeez. I'm sorry to hear that. How old are you? He asked, hoping to distract her from that subject. I'm 5. My name is Heather. What a pretty name. Thank you. It's a flower. We're all flowers. All? The door opened and Lizzie stuck her head in. Come on, sweetie. Bus will be here any minute. Heather looked up at the man. Well, bye. Hope you feel better real soon. Thanks. They left the room, and he felt suddenly very alone. And when he heard the front door open, he glanced out the window to the porch. What he saw next took his breath away. Lizzie walked out, then Heather, wearing her backpack, and Heather moved down to stand at the bottom of the steps, and Lizzie turned. Okay, babies, everybody have a seat, and you can watch the school bus and wave to Heather. To his amazement, 4 tiny blonde heads moved into view. Obediently, each little girl sat down on the top step. Here it comes, one yelled, even though you could hardly call the tiny voice a yell. Yep, here it comes, Lizzie confirmed. What color is the bus, Daisy? I know, one said. I asked Daisy, Lizzie answered softly. It's yellow. a soft voice said, making Keegan smile. That's right, Daisy. What number is on the side of the bus, Lily? 103, she answered gleefully. 3, like me. That's right, Lizzie purred, causing Keegan's insides to turn. Lizzie took Heather's hand, then turned back to the four sitting on the steps. Remember, no one moves off their step. Keegan watched as Lizzie and Heather moved up the drive into the street. Lizzie bent down and kissed Heather, let go of her hand, and watched her move up the steps of the bus. Lizzie said something to the bus driver, smiled, and waved as the bus pulled away. Everybody wave, Lizzie called to the four on the steps. He could see four little arms and hands waving madly. Bye, Heather, bye, they called at once. Okay, everyone, inside, Lizzie said as she got to the porch steps. I want everyone dressed while I do the breakfast dishes, and then we'll all go in to meet our new guest. But you have to promise me to be very good. He heard the slamming of a door, probably a screen door, as they came inside, then heard that same pattering of feet as they ran, he supposed, to go dress as their mother had ordered. Well, more like cajoled. The door to his room opened, and she came in, her face somewhat flushed, her eyes sparkling. Did you enjoy your breakfast, Mr. Moreland? The corners of his mouth turned down slightly. Please stop calling me that, he said, realizing at the last minute his tone was too brusque. He sighed, and I enjoyed my breakfast immensely. Thank you. Frowning, she lifted the tray from the base and set it on the end of the bed and returned the base to its position under the bed. Her hands went to her hips. Well, what would you have me call you then? Michael? How about Mike? Can you do that? Of course, if that's what you'd like. We're going to be together closely for several weeks, so we might as well dispense with all the formality. So why don't you call me Liz or Lizzie? Well, what's your real name? Elizabeth? No, what's your real name? Elizabeth? Yes. I think I'll call you that. She shrugged. Suit yourself. Lifting the breakfast tray, she headed for the door. Elizabeth, he said softly. She stopped and turned, her heart in her throat. His deep voice stroking over her name caused her stomach to flutter in response. Yes, she answered. I'm sorry about your husband. She nodded. Thank you. What branch of service was he in? Army. Did you serve? Marines. Well then, she hesitated. Again, thank you. She left the room. Lizzie hurried around the kitchen, doing up dishes and taking out some ground beef to thaw and cleaning up a sticky spot on the floor, the whole time thinking about Michael Moreland. Not used to being so close to a man other than her husband, she couldn't place the feelings that crept up her spine and had the hairs at the nape of her neck standing on end. He looked at her in that very male, very primitive kind of way, heating her blood and doubling her respiration. She wasn't stupid. Of course, what she was feeling was lust. It was a new thing to her, though. The love that she'd shared with Bradley was sweet and wholesome and heavenly, and now there was a man in her home who was nothing like Bradley, not in any way, and he was causing feelings she'd never experienced. She wasn't afraid of him. She was excited by him. She was a nurse. She understood a body's needs, and it had been a very long time, so that would explain her reaction to him, besides the fact that he was extremely good looking. His dark hair and darker eyes gave him a dangerous look, but when he smiled, which he hardly ever did, not that she could blame him right now, it showed a boyish character and that one adorable dimple. His body was banded with lean muscle. Who couldn't resist that broad, muscular chest and six-pack abs? His one thigh was thick and strong. They'd have to work on regaining muscle in the other leg when it became weight-bearing. Pushing her thoughts to what had to be done, she went to check on the children. Rose and Violet were almost dressed, but needed help with their shoes. Daisy and Lily were still rummaging through their drawers. There wasn't much to choose from. Just about all their clothes were hand-me-downs. Lizzie knelt down and helped them decide between pink or lime green pants and shirts with flowers or shirts with butterflies. The green pants and butterfly shirts won out. Once they were dressed, teeth cleaned, faces washed, and hair brushed, she led them to Mr. Moreland's room. She knocked softly and pushed the door open. He'd fallen back to sleep, the newspaper spread out across his chest. Quietly, she moved toward the bed and reached for the paper. The moment she touched it, his hand snapped out, trapping her wrist in an iron grasp. She gasped. His eyes opened and bored deep into hers. violence and rage barely contained. I, was just moving the newspaper, she tried to explain. A look of confusion crossed his features and then his eyes widened. He glanced down at his hand holding her wrist and let go immediately. I'm sorry. I must have dozed off. You startled me. She swallowed, rubbing her wrist. Do me a favor and don't sneak up on me. Ever. Okay, she agreed quickly and meekly, and he felt instantly sorry. Darn it. He hadn't meant to scare her. He watched her as she straightened her shoulders and put on a brave front. I thought you might like to meet the girls, she explained, but I can come back another time if you prefer. No, please, introduce me to the girls. I'm sorry I snapped at you. She drew a breath and blew it out. Okay, well, this is Rose, and this is Violet. They're twins, as you can see. Hello, Rose and Violet, he said softly, noting their blue eyes were large with apprehension. How old are you? He asked, trying to put them at ease. We're 4, they answered in unison. He chuckled. Lizzie immediately looked up at the pleasant sound. Her eyes met his. He actually smiled. And who are these two? He asked, snapping her out of her shock. This is Lily, and this is Daisy. They're 3. Well, hi there, Lily and Daisy, he said, his eyes twinkling. Lizzie was captivated by the sight. Lily's shy, Daisy said. She won't talk. But I will. I'm not shy. He watched Lily, her little mouth pouting, her eyes cast downward. It's okay to be shy. I used to be shy when I was little, but I'm not anymore. Lily's head lifted, and she smiled up at him, then at her mother, who was looking at him. Well, she said, smiling at Mike, let's leave Mr. Moreland alone to get some rest. She glanced at him, and he actually seemed to be disappointed. Okay, bye, Mr. Moreland, the girls all called gaily. Get better. How could I not, with so many pretty girls around, he said quietly, glancing pointedly at Lizzie. New scene. Hello, Mike. Keegan's eyes snapped open. He had to stop falling asleep. Nigel. He glanced around to make sure Lizzie wasn't in the room. Close the door. Nigel fulfilled the request. As soon as he turned back to Keegan, he was blasted. What do you think you're doing placing me in a civilian's home? Do you know she has 5 children? Yes, I realize that. They're in danger. You have to know that. You know what kind of people we're dealing with, Nigel. How can you put these people in danger? You wouldn't be here if I didn't feel that you were perfectly safe. It's not me, it's them I'm worried about. What is wrong with you? Nigel's eyes narrowed. Let me remind you of something. I'm your superior officer, and I know what I'm doing. I won't compromise civilians. You needed a nurse while you recover. I could put men at your door at the hospital or move you to another medical facility and still have to put guards at the door. Here, you're out in the middle of nowhere, much more difficult to find if and when Saletos figures out you're alive. There was no paper trail. You can't be traced here. Keegan Tanner is dead. Michael Moreland went home to Denver. You're safe. They're safe. We have agents periodically watching the house. If we need to move you, we will. I don't know what's gotten into you, but you'd better get hold of yourself. Keegan gave a bitter laugh. Or what? You want to take me off the case? You're going to send someone else in there when we don't even know who blew my cover? When we already have the evidence we need? Do we? I haven't seen anything. I have it, or I'll have it soon. When I do, I'll deliver it straight to the field office. Well, I'll be waiting. And in the meantime, I'm a sitting duck here. You got to get me out of here. You're not going anywhere. We're keeping a close eye on Saletos. If they discover you're still alive, we'll get you out. Agents are in the area if you need them. He held up a leather duffel. Your guns, cell phone, laptop, and other assorted goodies. You can use the credit cards if you need to make purchases. Keep a gun close. Oh, yeah, you can count on it. That's it. I'll check it periodically. You know how to reach me. You can't leave me here like this. You know how to reach me, Nigel repeated. Shaking his head, Keegan blew out a resigned breath. Lizzie knocked softly before she opened the door. Hey, she said softly, Mr. Court, can I get you something to drink? No, actually, I'm leaving. But you just got here. I know. He glanced at Keegan. And I hate to leave my little brother here in his condition, but I've got a business to run, and I know he's in good hands, though. She smiled. I'll take very good care of him. Keegan's head fell back against the pillows. Nigel glanced at him. Get well, Mikey. Whatever. Nigel turned his eyes on the great-looking blonde standing next to him. He's a grump, but don't let that get to you. He's not so bad once you get to know him. I'm not worried, she answered, smiling her sweet smile. I'll see myself out, Nigel said as he left the room. Can I get you anything, Mike? Lizzie asked. No, he replied shortly. Not a thing. She shook her head and softly closed the door. New scene. She came to him. He watched the door open slowly. He must have done something good, for she allowed him to see her. At first, all he could see was the white gossamer gown, backlit by the light coming from the room beyond. Her sleek legs moved slowly as she crossed the floor, not making a sound. His eyes wandered over her, coming to rest finally on her face. Mrs. Anderson, he said softly. Elizabeth, it is you. She leaned over him. Yes, Michael, it's me. It's always been me. He wanted to touch her. Please release me so I can move, he begged. She nodded, smiling at him, and immediately his hand reached out to touch her. He marveled at the softness of her skin, and she shivered, and he pressed his hand against her back, bringing her closer to him. I don't know about these things, Michael, she said. Of course you don't, he answered. You're an angel. I'll teach you. She nodded. Let me touch you. Come closer, he whispered. Up here. He patted the bed. You are so very beautiful, he whispered reverently. He took her face in his hands and brought her to him for a kiss. She learned quickly. She made a low, purring sound as he kissed her slowly and thoroughly. Watching her face hypnotized him. The door burst open. The intruders never hesitated. They moved toward the bed, pointed the gun at Elizabeth, and fired. She slumped down on top of him. He dove off the bed, bringing her with him. They shot him in the leg. The familiar pain consumed him. Struggling, he reached under the bed for the bag Nigel had brought him, grabbed his gun. The intruders ran. He took a moment to catch his breath and then finally stashed the gun back into his bag. Turning his attention to Elizabeth, he placed his hands on either side of her face, and she opened her eyes. You're alive, he said, his voice full of wonder, tears in his eyes. He brought her mouth to his and kissed her soundly. Let me go, she said fiercely. She pushed against his chest, finally breaking his hold. His eyes opened, blinked, and he cursed. Indeed, Elizabeth gasped, on her knees on the floor beside him. Peering around, he realized he lay on the floor next to the bed, in the room, in Elizabeth Anderson's home. His leg was throbbing in excruciating pain. What happened? He asked. Lizzie took several seconds to catch her breath. I heard you yell, and then I heard a thump, and I came running in to find you lying on the floor, and I knelt beside you, and you grabbed me, and... He waited, and when she didn't continue, he prodded. I what? What did I do? You kissed me. I couldn't stop you. I couldn't get away. Jesus, I'm sorry, Elizabeth. I must have been dreaming. I wouldn't hurt you, I swear. Do not take my Lord's name in vain, please, she said. Blowing out a breath, she pushed her hair back from her face, and he couldn't help but notice her hands were shaking. He reached up and took them in his. I'm sorry. Bad habit. I will try to watch what I say. But I swear, Elizabeth, I'd never hurt you. It's the stupid pain medication. It puts me too far under. She looked down at his hand holding hers. He squeezed, causing her to look up at him. Please don't be afraid. Her smile appeared, bravely, timorously. Of course, I'm not afraid of you. You're not a bad man. I know that. You're just grumpy. You frightened me for a moment, that's all. Her lips pursed as she blew out a long breath. The question is, are you hurt? I don't know. I don't think so. She frowned. I don't know how I'm going to get you up and back into bed. He looked around. Did they leave you any crutches for me? Yes, but no buts, just get them. She left to do his bidding. He looked down at himself. He wore a t-shirt and nothing else. His right leg was throbbing inside the cast. His toes were turning blue, and when she returned with the crutches, he glanced up at her. She had on a long nightshirt that came to just above her knees. Her feet were bare. Her long blonde hair was mussed and fell over one shoulder. How are we going to do this? She asked pensively. He grasped the bottom of the bed rail. Okay. I'm going to pull myself up as far as I can, and the moment you can get a crutch under me, do it. She nodded. Grunting in pain, he pulled himself up, moving his hand from the bed rail to just under the edge of the mattress and finally to the top of the mattress. His back burned as he used the not quite mended muscles. His head pounded. As soon as he was upright enough, Elizabeth pushed the crutch under his arm. He took a second to catch his breath, then finally made it to a standing position. His eyes closed in pain as the blood rushed through his leg. For the first time, he actually felt the pain in his cracked ribs. Nausea overtook him. Breathing hard, he got himself under control. She handed him the second crutch, and he used it to get his balance and to turn slowly. He eased himself onto the bed. As he leaned back, Lizzie lifted the injured leg and set it gently down, arranging the cushions to prop it up higher than usual. He sighed in relief as the pain immediately eased, and then chuckled. That that was an adventure. Glancing up at Lizzie, he was startled by the tears in her eyes. Elizabeth? Her chin quivered. She blinked several times, pressing her lips together in an obvious attempt to keeping those tears from falling. You could have been hurt badly. I should have made sure the bed rails were up. And then you fall out of bed, and I have to depend on my own patient to figure out how to get off the floor and back in bed. Oh, I'm doing just a fine job of taking care of you, aren't I? You'd probably be better off if we dropped you in an alley somewhere. And now what am I going to do? I received this amazing opportunity to make money while I stay home with my children, and I let this happen. I've probably blown any chance I had to get my license. Oh, come on now. It's not so bad. How could you have known? Please don't be upset. You're taking great care of me. She shook her head. You're just being kind. What's more, now I'll have to take you in and have your leg x-rayed, maybe your ribs, check to make sure there are no new internal injuries. Oh, you can't take me anywhere. I have a wheelchair for you. I can. Listen, I simply fell out of bed. I'm okay. Well, what if you've re-injured yourself in some way? What if the fall moved the bones in your legs in your leg in any way? I think I would be in a lot more pain. Elizabeth, listen to me. I refuse to be transported anywhere. I'm fine. You'll just have to trust me on that. You don't know if you're fine. I'd better call Mr. Court. Please, Elizabeth, please don't call my brother. He'll be very upset. Not with you, but with me. Why would he be upset with you? Keegan thought quickly. Because I'm always causing him trouble. Time and money, he always says. Please don't call him. Let's just play it by ear. If I don't feel much pain, then I'm probably okay. You are in pain. I was, not now. I'm feeling much better already. Her lips twisted into an adorable little pout, and she sighed. Okay, well, I guess we'll see, she said, not promising anything. She made a fuss out of covering him, tucking him in, and raising the bed rails, and finally she looked back up at him. Thank you, he said softly. He gazed at her lovely face. One more thing. Maybe we can dispense with the pain medication. It does weird things to me and makes me dream crazy dreams. She nodded. If that's what you want, that's what we'll do. Good. And Mrs. Anderson, about that kiss, I hope it didn't upset you too much. Her fingers self-consciously touched her own lips, causing his gut to twist. Her face colored a soft pink. Of course not. Just forget it. Like he could, he thought, as he watched her leave the room. He shook his head. He'd messed up. This had been the perfect opportunity to get the heck out of here, but the sight of the young widow's tears, of her worry that she wouldn't be able to stay home with her children, had him jumping to her rescue. Her little emotional outburst told him that this setup working out was extremely important to her. New scene. He'd made it all week, almost. 5 days of letting Elizabeth Anderson wake him with her cheery smile and then proceed to take care of his bodily needs. It was over. He was finished. No more. He braced for the showdown as the doorknob turned and her pretty smile lit up the room. Good morning, Mike, she sang cheerfully, holding the urinal in her hand. He scowled at her. He couldn't take the chance of conversing politely with her at first, or she would win. If he frightened her or hurt her feelings, well, so be it. Today, he was breaking free. A man could only take so much. I'm not using that. Of course you are, she said, still smiling. No, I'm not. Her smile faded. What are you talking about? What's the alternative? I'm getting up to use the bathroom on my own. But you can't get out of bed. You're not supposed to be up for at least 2 weeks. Tough. I'm getting up today. But it's not just your leg, Mike. It's the cracked ribs, too. You can't walk on crutches and the wheelchair won't fit in the bathroom. I can and will walk on the damn crutches, he growled, her eyebrows raised. Sorry, I mean, I can walk with the crutches. No more urinals, no more sponge baths, no more bedpans, no more. I can take care of myself. You can you? She said, her hands on her hips. And who is going to prepare your meals and wash your clothes and change your bed? He swallowed. Well, maybe I need a little help, but I can certainly wash my own body and take care of the more personal things. This is ridiculous. I am a nurse. His eyes flashed. And I am a man, he barked. Her mouth opened to say more, but his words finally struck home. Her blue eyes met his dark ones. Please, Elizabeth, Keegan pleaded. You're killing me. Her chin quivered. Oh, oh, come on now. Please don't cry. He wasn't used to being gentle. He was used to saying what he meant to say and getting it over with. Her chin jutted out defiantly. Fine. She stormed over to where the crutches leaned in the corner and grabbed them and brought them to him. Thank you, he said softly, sitting up. Mind if I stay next to you until I know you can stand? She asked, somewhat sarcastically. Thinking better of her tone, she softened. I mean, you might feel a little dizzy at first. Thank you, he said again. I'd appreciate that. He looked down at the casted leg and sighed. I guess I do need you to take care of me. Could you help me get my leg off the bed? Of course, she said, moving forward. He pulled the blankets back, remembering too late that he was naked from the waist down. Eyeing him, Lizzie went to the dresser and pulled out a pair of boxers. Once she'd helped him swing his leg down, he drew in a breath as she knelt down in front of him to help guide the shorts over his cast. He stood, grabbed the waist, and finished pulling them up. Man, but it felt good to have on pants again, even if they were only underwear. No dizziness, Lizzie asked. I think I'm okay. He placed the crutches under his arm, took a breath, and took his first step, schooling his face. He was not going to let her see just how painful it was to carry his own weight. His leg, used to being elevated, was throbbing. His ribs burned with pain. His entire body screamed, and he didn't care. He'd tough it out. Well then, I'll leave you to it, Lizzie said quietly. Don't be afraid to call me if you need me. I'll be fine, he said gruffly as he ambled into the bathroom and closed the door behind him. New scene. Lizzie turned over and kicked the covers off her heated body. Heated not because of the temperature of the house, but rather from the man who'd been living in her house 2 weeks now. She'd been unable to get that kiss out of her mind. He'd been dreaming, she realized. He hadn't really kissed her, yet that didn't keep her from feeling it all the way to her toes. He'd taken her mouth so hard, so rough, he'd completely possessed her for those few brief seconds. How could she help but wonder what it would be like if he'd kissed her for real? Kissed her, not some dream fantasy woman. Never had she been kissed like that. This is ridiculous, she thought. He is my patient. He is my responsibility. Why can I not get these images out of my mind? Tossing the covers completely aside, she rose and went to the window, staring out at the darkness. Admittedly, she was lonely. Logically, she knew she needed a companion, someone to talk to and share her feelings with. In her heart, though, she felt guilty for wanting one, even though she knew Bradley wouldn't want her to be alone the rest of her life. Bradley and her were like soulmates. They knew each other's minds. He would want her to find someone who would take care of her and the children. However, this man could not be that man, because he was nothing like Bradley. He was not kind. He was not gentle. So why couldn't she put him out of her mind? Why did she want him to touch her? Why did she long to feel his kiss for real? She left her room and wandered through the one-story house, stepping across the hall to peek in at her daughters before she headed for the den in the back of the house and curled up on the sofa. She had just laid her head on an accent pillow when someone cleared their throat. Gasping, she jumped to her feet. It's okay. It's just me, Keegan said. Her hand pressed against her heart as she turned toward the shadow in the chair in the corner. You scared me. I'm sorry, he said softly. What are you doing up? She asked. I was restless, not enough exercise. Lizzie eased back down onto the sofa. So, you came to sit in here in the dark? He shrugged. The dark doesn't bother me. And I admit, I didn't just come in here. I've been wandering through your house. He didn't bother to tell her that he was getting the setup, counting doors and windows, looking for possible escape routes. Rising from the chair, he grabbed his crutches and moved toward the sofa, stopping to switch on a lamp first. May I? He asked, motioning toward the seat next to her. Of course, she answered, letting her eyes take in the sight of him. He wore a black t-shirt and black sweats with one leg cut up the seam. He'd asked her to make the purchases for him. His brother had provided white t-shirts and boxer shorts. Michael decided he needed a lot more than that. Leaning the crutches against the end of the sofa, he lowered himself down, giving a small grunt as he fell the last few inches. He sat far enough away from her so that he could turn slightly toward her and watch her face as he spoke to her. You really need to keep that elevated, she couldn't resist saying. Though I guess you don't want to hear that from me. His gaze swept her face and body, noting the pink jersey nightshirt with a picture of a giant bunny. He wondered if she had on anything else. Her legs were tucked up under her. He could tell from the words she'd just spoken that her feelings were still hurt from his demand to take care of himself. Look, Elizabeth, I want you to know how much I appreciate your taking care of me. You're a great nurse. He searched for the right word, very conscientious. I didn't mean to seem ungrateful the other day. If I hurt your feelings, I didn't mean to. It's just that I wanted to do a good job. If you knew how hard it's been, what I mean is, I needed to. He began to panic. He didn't want her to cry again. Elizabeth. When she didn't answer, he scooted closer and reached out to touch her shoulder. Elizabeth, you did do a good job. You are doing a good job. She shook her head and used her fingers to wipe at the moisture that had gathered. Sorry. I don't know what's come over me. I must be tired. He smiled. Well, it is the middle of the night. She laughed and looked up at him. I guess it's just that this job is so important to me. If I do a good job with you, Dr. Duncan will send me more patients. And I need more patients because I just can't leave my girls with the babysitter anymore. I just can't. Instinctively, he pulled on her arm. Elizabeth, come here. He moved closer, frustrated that he couldn't move freely. Come here. She looked up, puzzled. He smiled. Trust me. Come here. Sighing, she scooted closer as he'd ordered, and next thing she knew, he'd pulled her into his arms and up against his chest, and his hand gripped the back of her head, smoothing her hair. There now, he said, softly. You can cry all you want. She tried, but suddenly she didn't feel like crying anymore. She felt silly. She giggled, looking up at him, his mouth just inches from hers. He was looking at her again in that way that made her feel all hot and tingly. She licked her lips, and he closed his eyes briefly. That helped to break the spell. I'm not a crybaby. Not usually, anyway. You've caught me at a vulnerable time. Well, I'm glad I did. It's nice to see a different side of you other than my tormentor. She glanced up at his eyes, noting the twinkle, then gave a small laugh. Dabbing at her eyes, she pulled out of his embrace and settled herself back in the corner of the sofa. He hadn't wanted to let her go. He'd been antsy and restless up until the moment he'd held her in his arms, and suddenly all was right with the world. Not a good thing, since the longer he was in her home, the more danger she was in. She was smiling at him again. His eyes drifted down toward the bunny, then flashed back up as he realized that she was watching his eyes. Lord have mercy, he ached to touch her. So you think I torment you, do you? She asked. Only as often as you can. No, really, Elizabeth. I want you to know that I think you're a great nurse. It's just that I'm not a great patient. That's the problem. I'm stubborn and pig-headed. Well, I can be just as pig-headed. So I've noticed. She laughed. So I peeked in the other day and you were hard at work on your laptop. Are you writing another story? A what? Oh, yes, a story. I'm pushing around some ideas. Dr. Duncan said your publisher would threaten to drop you if they knew you'd been incapacitated. Yeah. She watched him. It's okay if you don't want to talk about it. I understand. Well, I really don't want to talk about it. What I'd like to do is ask you some questions. She nodded. Sure. Okay. How old are you? I'm 24. 24? I thought you were a lot older than that. She frowned, and he immediately realized his mistake. Not that you look old. I mean, you look about 16, but I just meant to already have 5 children. I thought you'd be a lot older. She shrugged. Yeah, I got pregnant with Heather when I was only 17. Bradley and I found out we were going to have a baby just before my 18th birthday, which is in April. Thank goodness I was a senior, and a few months later we graduated from high school. She rolled her eyes. I'm sure you don't want to hear about Bradley and me. Sure I do. Tell me. Are you sure? Tell me. I'm a writer. I'm interested in everything. Her eyebrows rose. Okay, you asked for it. So when we found out we were pregnant, Bradley was excited and I was scared. I mean, we knew being together was wrong when you're not married. We were told that often enough at church, but we were so in love, and it happened. She shrugged. He put his plans of going to college on hold, and we got married and moved in here with my parents. We decided we would save some money, and then after the baby was born, we would move closer to Atlanta, where Bradley would work part-time and go to school. He knew it would be hard, but we believed we could do it. Heather was born in January. We were so happy. We'd saved a lot of money. We were just getting ready to make our move to Atlanta just before my 19th birthday when we found out I was pregnant again. Yikes. She chuckled, to say the least. The first time around, my mom and dad were pretty supportive. They really loved Bradley. After all, he and I had been boyfriend and girlfriend since kindergarten. Seriously? Yes, at school we were inseparable. Did your parents arrange play dates? Lizzie laughed. Ha, not so much. Different pay grades, if you know what I mean. Anyway, the second time around, my parents became pretty concerned. They couldn't see how we were going to support 2 children and still get our education. Then we found out it was twins, and Bradley began to agree with my parents, and he set out to do something about our situation. And that's when he joined the army? Yes. We didn't mean to get pregnant again, it just happened. I admit I was a little scared, but I started nursing school, and Bradley joined the military. He told me that everything was going to be okay. After doing his 4 years, he'd get his education, and we'd be fine. But, but of course, it didn't turn out like that. The twins were born on Christmas, Rose and Violet. Bradley didn't make it home in time to see the birth, but he made it home by March. I was so happy to see him. I'd missed him so much. He took one look at the twins and melted into a big puddle. And Heather, he couldn't get enough of her. He was so in love with those little girls. And me. She sighed, smiled. Having him home after being away from him for so long, it was just so good, you know. I could barely stand the thought that he had to leave again so soon. I was devastated, but he was always so positive, so up, so sure of everything. I guess that's why everyone loved him so much. He told me how wonderful everything was going to be. He told me to keep my chin up. He left on the first day of May. A few weeks later, I had to write him and let him know that I was pregnant again. Seemed I probably got pregnant sometime in mid-April, right near my birthday. I'm beginning to see a pattern here. Your birthday seems to be a dangerous time. Yeah, Bradley and I laughed about that. You didn't think about birth control? Shame flashed in her eyes. He hadn't meant to make her feel bad. I guess that's none of my business. She shrugged. No, that's okay. I think everyone in Tyler Springs has asked that same question, and some of them weren't nearly as polite. We believed in doing things naturally. I didn't want to take the pill. We really tried hard to do things right, and I thought we had. We were very surprised we were pregnant again. I couldn't even think of a time we didn't use protection. Somehow, I still got pregnant. I guess sometimes things are just meant to be, he said softly, understanding in his eyes. She held his gaze for several moments. You're the only one who's ever said that other than Bradley. She blew out her breath and went on. The day we found out it was twins again, I came home and cried. I thought I was going to die. Not Bradley, though. He wrote to me and kept me calm. He filled his letters with stories about how good our life was going to be. Her voice became quiet. He never got to see Lily and Daisy. He was killed by enemy fire while trying to rescue a wounded soldier. The 4th anniversary of his death is coming up soon. Keegan closed his eyes a moment, feeling the fear of such a young mother with her husband gone, along with feeling the pain of the loss of such a good man. So, he died a hero. Yes. And what happened to your parents? My father died of a heart attack about 6 months before Bradley was killed. My mother died 3 months ago from a major stroke. He shook his head. She was all alone, a very young mother, all alone and responsible for 5 tiny lives. What about Bradley's parents? He asked. They don't acknowledge me or the girls. They were so angry with Bradley from the moment he told them about Heather and the plans we'd made. They immediately disowned him. I think they thought he would cave and do what they wanted him to do, which was to give the baby up for adoption and go on with his life. But he called their bluff, and they had to live with it. I've tried to reach out to them, but they say if it wasn't for me, Bradley would never have joined the service and would still be alive. She wiped at her eyes. And they're right, of course. He touched her shoulder. You can't believe that. It's true. Elizabeth, bad things happen. If your pregnancy didn't bring it on, then something else would. There are a million paths we take in this life. Who is to say that they don't all lead toward the same outcome? One thing I know for sure, Bradley must have loved you a great deal. You didn't force him to make the choices he made. Just from what you've told me, he strikes me as a man who made his own choices. You can't blame yourself for anything he did. She sat quietly thinking about his words, and finally she nodded. Thank you. You're welcome. When she didn't say anything else, he figured he'd better head back to his room. Besides, his mind was wandering to places it shouldn't be. Well, I'd better try to get some sleep. My tormentor is due in my room at 6:30. She smiled. Well, maybe I'll let you sleep late. That would be great, he said, as he struggled to stand and get the crutches up under him. Lizzie stood beside him. Her mouth dropped open as she looked up at him. What? He asked. I've only seen you on your feet a few times, and I guess I wasn't paying attention. I didn't realize you were so big. You're at least as big as Bradley, maybe even taller. His eyes darkened. She looked so very petite standing next to him, and young and vulnerable. So he really shouldn't do what he'd been thinking about doing the whole time they'd been talking, which was figuring out a way to kiss her. Come on, she said, I'll walk you to your room. He was a weak man. How about I walk you to yours, he replied. Sighing, she gave in. Fine, she said, accepting the fact that he just wouldn't let her take care of him. They walked the few feet to her bedroom door, and she turned. Well, this is it. He couldn't take his eyes off her mouth, and he swallowed. Elizabeth, he said, his voice low and husky. Yes? The other night when I had that dream and I kissed you, did it frighten you? Embarrassed, she looked down. No. Surprised me, maybe, but it didn't frighten me. She raised her head. Why? Because I'd like to do it again, now that I'm awake, but not if it would frighten you. You want to kiss me? Very much. I'm not sure that would be appropriate. Why? Because the children are nearby? Because you're my patient, he smiled. Your patient is the least of what I am. I'm also a man, and you are a beautiful woman, and I can't stop thinking about it, and all I'm asking for is just one kiss. Just once. Just to get it off my mind. It's been on your mind? Yes, too damn much. Too much. Her face colored. It's been on my mind, too. He shook his head. She was too sweet, too open and honest, and he was about to take advantage of that. Then what do you say? Say no, and I'll back off. No hard feelings. But, sweet Elizabeth, I'm really hoping you'll say yes. He watched her while she tried to decide. Her breathing had increased. Her chest was rising and falling as if she were running. A row of white teeth bit down on her lower lip. The sight made his blood rush. She glanced at his mouth, and finally she looked into his eyes. Yes. Relief washed over him. Before she could change her mind, he moved fast, angling closer, then tucking the crutches firmly under his arm so he could use both his hands, and cradling her face in his palms like he did in the dream. He raised her face and lowered his head. First, he only gently touched his lips to hers, and then, as she responded, he kissed her firmly. He let a soft groan slip out. Lizzie felt hot. The heat started in her chest and moved lower, spreading across her abdomen. The sheer male power of him was overwhelming. One of his hands moved to cradle her head, and the other moved down to her waist and pulled her in tighter against him. He groaned, and the thought that she could cause that kind of a reaction from a man so obviously in control of everything made her feel very powerful. Her hand spread across his chest as he deepened the kiss. He broke the kiss and stepped back breathlessly. Their eyes met. The minute ticked on. He couldn't figure out if she'd known what she was doing or not, but she came close to making him forget that there were children sleeping nearby. Finally, he smiled. Well, damn. She smiled back. She'd heard him curse many times now, but this time the curse sounded much more like an exclamation. He touched her nose. Good night, Elizabeth. Leaning forward, he stole another quick kiss, then turned and headed for his room. Good night, Michael Moreland, she said softly. New scene. He sat staring at the delicious dinner his angel had brought to him. Chicken breasts and some sort of cream sauce, new potatoes, asparagus, roll and butter, and strawberry shortcake. The meal looked and smelled amazing, but he didn't want to sit in his room and eat all alone. He could hear the soft voices and tiny giggles of the females at the opposite end of the house. It had been 4 weeks since the accident, 3 spent in this house with the angel of his dreams. The kiss Elizabeth had offered him so easily a week ago hadn't done what it was supposed to do, get her off his mind. He wanted her. He wanted her more than he'd ever wanted anyone or anything. He rolled his eyes toward the ceiling. He also wanted to ease her burden, to comfort her, to do something positive for her during the time he was here. He wanted to make her laugh. He wanted to get to know her and her little girls, too. He was a man who went after what he wanted, and there would be no exception now. Setting the tray to the side, he rose and grabbed his crutches and made his way toward the back of the house. The moment he entered the kitchen, the voices stopped. 6 pairs of eyes peered up at him. Lizzie rose immediately. Mike, are you okay? Do you need anything? Was something wrong with your dinner? Smiling, he nodded at the group. My dinner is great. I was hoping you would let me eat in here with you and the girls. I needed some company. I mean, if you don't mind. Lizzie's mouth dropped open. Oh, well, of course we don't mind. She rose to grab an extra chair sitting by the window and placed it at the end of the table. Mommy, you're giving him the timeout chair, Heather said, a big smile taking over her tiny features. The timeout chair, Keegan said with a smile. I guess I've been bad. He sat while Lizzie retrieved his dinner from his room. She placed the contents of the tray on the table in front of him, then resumed her place at the other side of the table. We were just about to say the blessing, Lizzie said. He watched as they reached out to hold each other's hands, and Heather extended her small hand to him. Smiling, he took her hand in his and then extended his other hand to the one on the other side, but he couldn't remember which flower she was. They bowed their heads, and he followed suit. It's your turn, Violet, Lizzie said softly. I don't wanna, the child holding Keegan's hand answered. Lizzie looked at her, realized she suddenly felt shy. That's okay. I'll say it tonight, but you have to say it tomorrow, okay? Okay, Mommy, the child whispered. They bowed their heads again. Father, Lizzie began, we thank you for our food and ask your blessing upon it, that it may nourish us and strengthen us. In Jesus' name, amen. You didn't say it all, Rose complained loudly. What do you mean? Lizzie asked. Every night we've been asking God to please bless Mr. Mike and help him to get better real soon, and how come you didn't say it this time? Lizzie glanced over at Mike, her face pink. He smiled at her. Well now, that sure is nice that you've been praying for me. I need all the prayers I can get. How come? Heather asked. He chuckled. I guess because sometimes I'm a bad boy. Mommy, finish the prayer, Rose insisted. They all bowed their heads again while Lizzie quickly asked God to heal Mike. Keegan glanced around at the girls who hadn't taken their eyes off him. Hi, ladies, he said, smiling at them. Hi, they all answered shyly, everyone except Lily. He took a bite of his chicken and looked back up, glancing at Lizzie and winking at her. She smiled at him. He watched as she scooped up a forkful of macaroni and cheese and placed it in her mouth, and his eyes narrowed as he realized something. How come I have a different menu than the rest of you? He asked. Girls, eat your dinner, Lizzie ordered before she answered him. We're pinching pennies. I can't afford to cook fancy meals every night for me and the girls. Yet you cook them for me? Your brother is paying me a lot of money to make sure you're properly being taken care of. He placed his fork beside his plate. So, you cook me expensive meals while you and the girls eat boxed macaroni and cheese and hot dogs? She shrugged. We don't mind. We're used to it. Well, I mind. His tone was quiet, but he could feel the anger simmering, and he was pretty sure she was picking up on it. What's wrong? You will not spend extra money on my meals. Her chin lifted, her eyebrows arched. You really have no control over what I prepare you to eat. He smiled. How could he not? Do you know you have a rebellious streak, Elizabeth? I certainly do not. He grinned. Nevertheless, I'm telling you right now, Elizabeth, don't buy me special food. Feed me the same thing you feed your family. But, but nothing. End of discussion. Fine. He smiled. Fine. He began cutting his chicken into small pieces and distributing it to each plate. When he offered some to her, she refused. Shrugging, he did the same with his potatoes. They each refused the asparagus, but he told them if they each ate one bite of asparagus, then they would all get to share in the strawberry shortcake. After much deliberation, they agreed. Then he stole bites of macaroni and hot dogs off the girls' plates, making them giggle. Lizzie watched Mike as he interacted with her girls. They took to him immediately, she thought. She couldn't believe he'd gotten them to try a bite of asparagus, and now he was engaging them in conversation, and the thought suddenly dawned on her. Do you have children, Mike? He glanced up at her, his eyes twinkling with amusement. No, but I do have nieces and nephews, my sister's kids. Oh, you never mentioned a sister. I have two, he said, hoping Nigel hadn't said differently, and they're a blast. Your sisters? My nieces and nephews. When she didn't ask any more questions, they resumed eating. Is you getting better? A tiny voice asked. Surprised, Lizzie glanced up at Lily, then over to Mike. He was smiling with such tenderness at her little girl, it took Lizzie's breath away. I'm getting a lot better, he said softly. I think it's because I have so many angels all around me. You have angels around you? Violet asked, her eyes wide. He laughed. I was talking about all of you. We're not angels, we're little imps, Rose said with a giggle. Lizzie laughed. Her eyes met Mike's, and she couldn't look away. I hope you don't get better. Keegan's eyebrows rose as he glanced at the one who'd made the comment, Heather, the eldest. Is that so? He asked, smiling at her. Her chin raised defiantly, so much like her mother it made his smile widen. Yes, she said firmly, and I'm glad you got hurt and had to go to the hospital. He nodded. I see. Young lady, that is not a very nice thing to say, Lizzie scolded. But it's the truth, and you said to always tell the truth. Lizzie drew in a breath, but Keegan caught her eye and shook his head. Your mommy's right, Heather. You should always tell the truth, he said, the guilt of the giant lie he was weaving around all of them edging into his brain. So tell me, why are you glad I was hurt? Because when you got hurt, Mommy got to come home and stay with us. And if you get better, then Mommy will have to leave us again and go back to work at the hospital. And I don't want Mommy to work at the hospital, she said adamantly, tears forming in her big blue eyes. Why don't you want your mom to work at the hospital? She helps people, and she's the very best nurse I've ever seen. He made a point not to look at Lizzie. I know she's a good nurse, she said, her chin starting to quiver. But Daddy went away to the army, and he said he was coming back, and he didn't come. And I don't remember him too much, but that's why I don't have a daddy. And all the other kids at school do, and he got killed, but he didn't mean to. And then Nana got sick and went to the hospital so they could fix her, but they couldn't, and she went away too to the same place as Daddy. And she didn't mean to, but sometimes when people get hurt or sick, they have to go away even if they don't want to leave us. Keegan watched as the child poured out her heart. Tears now ran down both her cheeks. He couldn't stand it. Come here, sweetie, he said softly. Lizzie was reminded of those same words he'd said to her the other night when he'd caught her at a vulnerable time. To her surprise, Heather scooted her chair back and ran to him. He scooped her up and held her in his lap as she buried her face against his chest and cried. He held her tight, stroking her back. There now, he said. Looking at Lizzie for guidance, he realized she would be no help. She looked close to tears herself. He understood the child's need to talk about her feelings, and so decided to pursue it further. So your daddy and your Nana both went away, huh, sweetie? She looked up, sniffling. Yes, she whispered. And when Mommy goes to the hospital, I get scared that she won't be able to come back. Maybe something will happen to her. And then who will take care of us? She threw herself against his chest again. He looked up at the sound of several more sniffles. Suddenly, the whole table was sobbing over the projected loss of their mother. Babies, Lizzie said softly, Mommy isn't going anywhere. I won't leave you, I promise. And when the crying continued, Keegan knew he had to do something. Okay, everybody stop, he said loudly and firmly enough to get their attention. Now, everyone, listen up. Here's the way it is. Your mom is not leaving you because as long as I'm here, she won't have to go back to the hospital to work. Right now, she gets to stay home and take care of you and me. Lucky her. Well, what about when you get well? It's going to be a long time before I'm well enough to leave here, and when I am, your mom is going to have someone else from the hospital come here for her to take care of. I don't want her to have someone else. I want her to have you. His glance at Lizzie had him realizing that she was enjoying his attempts at having a logical, rational conversation with her girls. Well, she's going to have me for a long time, so let's just think about that right now. He jiggled the little girl in his lap. Now, right now, if you want me to stick around, you have to do something for me. Her blue eyes blinked up at him. What? She asked, giving him a big sniff. Well, first things first, he said as he picked up his napkin and wiped her face, then held the napkin to her nose. Blow, he commanded. Once she did, he folded the napkin and smiled down at her. Now, here's what you have to do. You have to smile. She wrinkled up her nose. What if I don't feel like smiling? Well, you have to do it anyway, even if you don't feel like it. Besides, if you smile even when you don't feel like it makes you feel happier. I don't believe that. Try it. No. He tickled her. Come on. I know you've got a smile in there somewhere. Oh, I see it coming. Here it comes. She burst into laughter. Heather, come sit down now and let Mr. Moreland eat. She frowned and turned and kissed his cheek, then jumped down off his lap. Keegan sat stunned, unable to make a sound. He used the time to finish eating his food. Once dinner time ended, he watched as Lizzie swung into action, getting the children to clear their dishes, then getting them to stay put while she cleared the rest of the table and put the dishes in to soak in hot, soapy water. Next, she took the girls in the den, which was divided from the kitchen only by a large curved archway, and settled them down to play nice while she went to finish the dishes. He watched her move, working at breakneck speed, glancing over her shoulder often to make sure the girls weren't into anything that could hurt them. Sitting at the table, watching her, he realized she didn't think her plight was so bad. She accepted that life offered her. She accepted what life offered her and made the very best of it. She worked her butt off, up at the break of day, cooking, cleaning, laundry, teaching, shopping, paying bills, and nothing for her. The children were her life. The problem was, as he sat there watching her, he realized he wanted to change that. He thought maybe he'd just been taken with her beauty and sweetness, or had a nurse fixation kind of thing going. He thought maybe he could just talk her into having a few healthy rounds of hot, steamy sex, and he'd be able to walk out of her life when the time came. Yet now, after spending a little time with her, he was thinking it's not going to be like that. He didn't want it to be like that. She deserved much more than that, and the thought of anyone else thinking about her in that way made him angry. His attention was grabbed by one of the girls. He had no idea which one. Will you come tell us a story? Rose asked, tugging on his hand. A story? I'm not very... He caught himself. He was supposed to be a writer, so he couldn't very well say that he wasn't good at telling stories. Frantically searching his mind for some tale he could use, he grabbed his crutches and made his way slowly into the den. Yay! The girls cried when Rose announced that he was there to tell a story. Resolved to his plight, he sat in the center of the sofa as the girls gathered round. Swallowing hard, he drew a deep breath and began. So once upon a time there were 5 little angels. His lips pressed together as he searched for the next words. His eyes lit up as a storyline popped into his head. Now, these angels weren't just your normal run-of-the-mill angels. They were the most beautiful angels that ever existed. They had beautiful blonde hair and bright blue eyes, and each had the name of a flower because they were as beautiful as any flower could ever hope to be. The girls giggled. He's talking about us, Heather whispered. I know that, Rose said indignantly. Shh, he said. Now, one day, the little angels decided they were going to do something very nice for someone, because that's what angels do, They do nice things for people. They decided they would do something nice for their very own mother. Lizzie stood in the doorway watching Mike tell the absurd story. He said the angels couldn't decide what they could do for their mother, and he started going through a bunch of silly things like painting her door purple or filling her tub with flowers. The girls were mesmerized, and she couldn't blame them because she was too. He was a handsome man with his dark hair that curled onto his forehead, his strong jaw, and that darned dimple. Even though he came across as bossy and grumpy, which she attributed to the Marine, she could see now that he was kind and gentle. Her mind strayed to the kiss, the one that wasn't a dream. He'd been gentle, yet he'd left her without a will of her own. She knew she shouldn't compare, but she couldn't help it. The kisses with Bradley had been warm and sweet and full of love, but they had never made her feel like she was losing control, like she was sinking into oblivion. He looked up at her as the story came to an end. She heard him say the angels all lived happily ever after. Smiling, she mouthed a thank you, and he mouthed a you're welcome back to her. Okay, babies, Lizzie said sweetly as she entered the room. It's bath time. Everyone tell Mr. Moreland good night. "Aw," came the expected protest. "Will you tell us a story tomorrow, too?" one asked. "Sure, if your mom doesn't mind." "Can he, Mommy?" she asked. "Of course, as long as he doesn't feel too tired." "Okay, then it's a date, tomorrow night. Good night, ladies." He rose and started out of the room, then stopped when he stood next to Lizzie. He looked down at her mouth, then into her eyes. For once, she wasn't smiling. Chewing on her lips, she looked deep into his eyes. "I feel the same way," he whispered. Her eyes opened wide in surprise that he'd read her thoughts so easily. He grinned. "Good night, Elizabeth." Keegan retired to his room, stripped down to his boxers, snatched up his laptop, and sat down in the rocker, deciding that sending in a status report would take his mind off of Elizabeth Anderson. 30 minutes later, just as he finished, there was frantic screaming, and Heather burst through his door. "What's wrong, Heather?" he asked, already standing and reaching for his gun in the bag under the bed. "Hurry, hurry," she cried. "Mommy fell, and she's not moving." Cursing his inability to move quickly, he grabbed his crutches. And that is the end of chapter 2.